A Venezuelan couple pulled off one of the boldest real estate frauds in American history. Today, you'll get the background. On Thursday, you'll hear the full story. Hi there, everyone. I'm Jeff, and this is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English with current events and trending topics. Today's lesson is a great example of how we take a story in the news and we help you with the English vocabulary. The story is about a Venezuelan couple who pulled off one of the boldest real estate scams in recent history. But today's lesson is going to help you understand that story. Now, today, you'll learn the vocabulary and the concepts. On Thursday, you'll hear the full story. So be patient with me today. You'll be listening, thinking, why is he telling me this? Trust me, you'll want to know the background before you hear the full story later in the week. Well, at the end of today's lesson, I'll show you what it means to cook something up. And if you think that has anything to do with the kitchen, you need to keep listening. You might be surprised by what it means. We'll also have a quote of the week, so let's get going. Most people who buy homes in the United States use a loan to help them make the purchase. The loans typically last between 15 and 30 years. The borrower, the homeowner, has to pay the loans back little by little every month until the end of the loan's term. But banks don't just trust that you'll pay the money back. They insist on some security. Now, before they give you the money, they investigate you. Do you have enough income to pay the loan back? Have you met your obligations in the past? Is the home really worth what you say it is? And here is the real security. The banks insist on a mortgage. In simple terms, a mortgage is a legal instrument that says if you don't pay the loan back, the bank gets to take your house. A title is proof that you own an asset like a house. So, if you buy a house with a mortgage loan, the title has a little note attached to it saying that the lender can take the title and take the house if the borrower doesn't pay up. Now, not everyone does it that way. Many homeowners pay the full price of the house up front. They don't deal with banks at all. If they do that, they own the house free and clear. Free and clear, meaning that no bank or other entity has any claim to the property. If you own a house free and clear, you have the option later of taking out a loan on the property. So, let's say that you own a $500,000 house free and clear. You can later go to a bank and get a loan for, let's say, $300,000 and pay that loan back little by little if you want to. If you do that, you still have to do a lot of paperwork, wait a long time, jump through hoops. But there is a small corner of the lending industry that serves people who want to get a real estate loan fast. They aren't banks, they're private lenders who offer what's called hard money loans. Now, a hard money loan doesn't require the kind of documentation that a traditional bank loan requires. There's no credit check, no stacks of documents to sign, no waiting around, no lawyers. If you own a property free and clear, you can show up with your ID, prove that you have the title to the house, and you can get a loan quickly. Hard money lending is legal, but I don't recommend it. Interest rates are really high, and there are fewer legal protections. But hard money lending is fast and easy, and it doesn't require a lot of documentation. Here's the second thing you need to know. American real estate is considered a safe asset for wealthy people in, say, unsafe or unstable parts of the world. Let's say you live in China. Now, many people make vast fortunes in China quickly by pleasing government officials. But if the government can help you make a fortune, then the government can take it away. So you want something safe, out of the reach of your country's government. Or let's say you made a fortune in Argentina where inflation is high and the currency is unstable. If you make a fortune today and put it in the bank, the value will drop quickly over time. So you want something stable. So many people decide to take millions of dollars of value from their home countries and they buy American real estate with it. No loan required. They don't need or often even want to live in the homes. And often the homes sit vacant. The purpose is that this is a safe place to park assets. No matter what catastrophe befalls you in your home country, the real estate assets in America can't be taken from you. It's even safer if you put the property in the name of a family member, like kids or spouses. New York has historically been a destination for this kind of money. I worked in the New York real estate industry when investment from Chinese buyers was at an all-time high. The buyers wanted the most opulent, most luxurious units. The more expensive, the better. The purpose wasn't to live in luxury. Sometimes the buyers never even opened the door. The purpose was to store their fortunes in a safe place outside of China, just in case. Miami is the same way. It's considered a safe and stable place to store wealth, especially for people who have made their fortunes in Latin America. The dynamic is a little different, however. Speaking in generalities, Latin American investors like to also use their units from time to time. Being able to spend part of the year in Miami is a luxury and a status symbol to many in Latin America. And a number of people connected to the corrupt and dictatorial Venezuelan government decided to store their own personal wealth in Miami real estate. Their money is safer in Miami than it is in the system that these individuals administer in their own country, after all. This didn't seem fair to Carlos Castañeda and Genesis Martusielo. Like many Venezuelans, they fled their country years ago to settle in the United States. But they soon started learning about real estate, mortgages, and hard money lending, and they cooked up a scam for the ages. I'll tell you the details on Thursday. Well, living in New York at that time, like I said, was strange. They were building these huge, super tall, skinny skyscrapers full of luxury units. And you'd look up at them at night and they'd be dark. Even after all the units were sold, you'd only see lights on in half or fewer of the units. Nobody would be home. Nobody was living there. They bought these apartments in, some say, the best city in the world, and they never walked through the front door. Or they would just go once in a while. And it made for strange bedfellows, too. You'd have CEOs of corporations, athletes, celebrities, investors, and doctors all living in the same building as shady Russian and Chinese characters, all trying to shield their money. Meanwhile, the people who were living in New York were searching high and low for an affordable place to live, just totally surrounded by vacant units. It was weird. Today's expression is cook up. To cook something up is to create a clever story or plan. If a plan or story is clever, it's smart and unique. So if you cook something up, you're creating a smart and unique story or a smart and unique plan. When we say someone cooked something up, it's generally against the rules. Generally not a true story, some type of crime, something like that. But I'm not talking like smash a car window and steal a phone. That's not clever. Clever is like you think about it, you plan it, and it's a smart plan. So when you cook something up, you make a clever story or a plan. Here's an example. Better Call Saul. You're tired of hearing me talk about this show, but I'm watching all 5 seasons, so it's giving me inspiration. Jimmy, a character in Better Call Saul, back in his past, would cook up scams to cheat people out of money. He'd get them to buy fake watches. He'd get them to invest in non-existent companies. He'd sit at this bar in Cicero, Illinois, drinking with a buddy, and they'd cook up a plan to scam money from someone else in the bar. They'd think up an elaborate story. They'd each play parts, and somehow they'd get the other person to give them money. They cooked up a story. They made up a story. They made up a plan. It was smart in its own way, and it was unique. Did you ever skip school? I never did. Never once. I wasn't clever enough to cook up a plan to skip school. You see, at least where I grew up, if you're not in the classroom, the school calls your parents. So you can't just wander off and spend the day in a park or wherever. You need to cook something up. You need a story. You need to create fake documents, like a note from home. You might need to forge a signature. You might need to start laying the groundwork days in advance. There's a famous movie called Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It takes place in Chicago and the suburbs. Ferris is a kid in school, and he cooks up an elaborate plan to skip school. He creates a complicated, elaborate story and plan so that he can skip school one day. Well, on Thursday, I'll tell you about a big real estate scam that 2 Venezuelan immigrants cooked up in Miami. They cooked it up. It was an elaborate, complicated plan, and it was clever. I worked in the real estate industry for 15 years, and I read their scheme, and I said, I don't support it. I don't agree with it, but I have to give them credit. It was smart. There are lots of ways to steal money, but the plan they cooked up was clever. It was smart, illegal, wrong, all that stuff, but it was smart. Time for a quote of the week. Blues is a type of music. It was one of the precursors to rock and roll music. A lot of famous rock bands, the Rolling Stones among them, were heavily influenced by blues music. So Jimi Hendrix was a famous guitarist, and here is today's quote. Blues is easy to play, but hard to feel. Now, I'm not a musician whatsoever. I don't have a musical bone in my body. But I think this means that it's easy to play the notes, but to be a good blues player, you have to feel it in your body, and that's the hard part, I think. Well, that's all for today's lesson. Remember, on Thursday, I'll tell you the full story of the Venezuelan couple who pulled off, or almost pulled off, one of the biggest real estate scams in recent history until they got caught. Now, while you wait, remember the lesson continues online at plainenglish.com/528. In today's lesson, you heard me say, the more expensive, the better. And on today's video lesson, I'll show you exactly what that means and how to use it in your own sentences. That's online at plainenglish.com/528. See you on Thursday.